Okay, so here we go on part 2 of our 3x3 decal. So this video will focus on using the transform tool. So I can use the transform tool, get to it most quickly by holding Control on my keyboard and hitting T. Okay, so Ctrl+T. Now Ctrl+T will pull up the ability to resize or scale our object, and we can rotate it. Now make sure whatever layer you want to transform is active. So right now my layer 1, which is my green bar, is active, so I'm going to just give it a little bit of a rotate like this, and I'm going to drag that bad boy down, make it a little, that's bigger than I want. How about that? Okay, and then to lock in my changes, I'm going to hit enter. Okay, now let's say I didn't like that. I can just hit Control-Z, Control, and then Z, and I'm back to normal. Okay, so let's go back to that transform. So I'm going to hit Control-T again. So if I want to keep the proportions of this as I drag it out, if I hold Shift and grab one of these corners, it's going to keep the proportions of this shape accurate. Okay. Now let's say I want to not only keep the proportions together, but I want to keep it centered. If I hold Alt and Shift, so I'm holding my Alt key and I'm holding my Shift key, it's going to scale it evenly and then keep its center point. This is great when we're working with different graphics on a vehicle or a sign. You want to scale something up, but you don't really want it to move. Okay, so I'm going to keep it like that, and then I am going to go ahead and give it a little bit of a rotate, and I'm going to hit enter to lock that in. Okay, so now with just my regular cursor tool, I can move this like down here. Okay, now I'm going to take my text layer right here. Okay, so I've activated it. I'm going to bring it down, and I want the rotation to match what I've done in here. Okay, so I'm going to do this by hitting Control-T, and you see this little center anchor here? Well, if I rotate this, it's rotating around that anchor point. If I drag this anchor point down to this bottom corner, well, now I've created like a cool little hinge. So this will allow me to line this up a lot easier. So I'm going to drag that anchor down to here, and now when I rotate this down, it lets me line that up a little bit easier. You can find a plethora of uses for that particular tool and the ability to move the anchor. Now it also looks like I probably, just for aesthetics, I'm going to shrink this down a little. I'm holding Shift while I did that to keep the proportions accurate. Now it looks nice and pretty. So I'm going to hit enter to lock in all of those changes I just did. Okay. I'm going to go ahead and label this layer 1 green bar. So I'm going to double click on the text in there, and I'm going to call this green bar. Okay, just so I know what all my layers are doing. So to recap, we use the transform tool, which is Control-T, to resize and rotate objects.